Invasive, intrusive, unsuitable. All words the Conservatives used to describe plans for next year's census while they were in opposition. So what changes have they made since David Cameron became Prime Minister? None, according to the man in charge of the exercise. Here's our political correspondent Ross Hawkins. Ross?
Eddie, we don't on the whole have to tell the authorities who stays in our house overnight. On the evening of the 27th of March next year, that will change. If someone stops over that evening, you'll have to make an official record on pain of a £1,000 fine, because that will be Census Day.
The greatest need has been for facts. Facts to know where to build new schools.
In 1971, the government persuaded citizens to hand over those facts with public information films and assurances about census-gathering staff like this.
Identify them by the blue satchel. It's the big form with a big job to do.
The security and authority of next year's census won't rest on the colour of official satchels. But the prospect of revealing employment status, number of bedrooms, proficiency in the English language, second home details, and what sort of central heating you have isn't everyone's idea of fun.
I think this is a ridiculously long and bureaucratic exercise. Some 32 pages of questions which are, in some cases, really very intrusive.
Alex Deane was once Chief of Staff to David Cameron. Now he's a campaigner with the group Big Brother Watch.
I don't imagine for a moment that putting a blank or palpably absurd answer, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, would result in a prosecution for anyone.
That would mean committing an offence. Not too long ago, the Conservatives felt strongly about this too. In October last year, their shadow Cabinet Office Minister Nick Hurd wrote to the head of the Statistics Authority to say his party wouldn't be able to support what he called an intrusive and invasive census in its current form, and he urged him to scale it back. Now Nick Hurd is a minister in the Cabinet Office, but the director of the England and Wales census, Glenn Watson, said his plans hadn't changed since election day, and the government hadn't been in touch about Mr Hurd's pre-election thoughts.
They haven't expressed those reservations to me since taking office. I've got 180 working days or so left until Census Day, and my job is to implement the wishes of Parliament, as agreed a few months ago.
No minister was free to tell us what the policy was today. And this isn't only a matter for England and Wales. Separate but similar census operations are being run in Scotland and Northern Ireland on the same day.
What we've got here are some original census returns, which you would not normally get.
Personal data from the census is locked away for 100 years to protect people's privacy. But the records show governments have long feared opposition to the process, as Audrey Collins of the National Archive explained as she showed me data collected in the 19th century. In 1841, census officials were offered police protection, and as time passed, people spotted the potential for breaking the rules.
And the really big example of this was in 1911, when there was a suffragette boycott of the census. They weren't doing it for any sort of privacy reason. They were doing it because it was a really good platform for demonstrating.
With universal suffrage settled, citizens have other causes to back on Census Day. In 2001, 390,000 people in England and Wales sought official recognition for the faith of Luke Skywalker by listing their religious belief as Jedi. The suffragettes weren't prosecuted for their flouting of the census rules. But what happened to those people who couldn't even be bothered to make Star Wars references 9 years ago and didn't return forms at all? The director of the England and Wales census, again, Glenn Watson, told me while 3 million people did not return completed census questionnaires, fewer than 100 were prosecuted. So how did they decide who to punish?
We have to have made contact. So quite a lot of the people that don't return the questionnaire, our census field staff have not been able to make any contact. And, you cannot prosecute a house.
If people do break the rules, they won't just be making things difficult for future family historians. This data is used to allocate over £100 billion of central government money to councils and health authorities each year, which means the authorities have got a job on their hands between now and next March to persuade people this matters and they can be trusted to look after the information. And afterwards, they'll have to decide who to prosecute once they've counted all the new Jedi of course.
What is the government saying, Ross?
Well, since we've been on air, the Cabinet Office have sent us a statement from the Cabinet Office Minister, Francis Maude, who says the expenses already committed to the census mean any changes are difficult. However, we're looking at ways to reduce the cost and will examine the best models to carry out this function in the future. Eddie.
Ross Hawkins at Westminster.